Good morning, good morning. Peace and blessings, girlfriends. It is that time. It is that time for another interview. All righty. Let's get going here. I hope you all are having a great day so far. We have an exciting interview that's coming up. And can't wait to get our guest on here and get us started here. You all get ready. You all be sure to hit the share button. You're going to want to do that. All right, let's see. Get our guest on here. Hi, Tremaine. Welcome on this morning. And there's our Akilah. Okay. Good morning, girlfriends. Let us know where you're viewing us from as you come in this morning. And we're going to have an amazing interview, great insights from our interviewee this morning. Here she is. Good morning, Akilah.
Peace, Angela. How you doing? How you
my
feeling?
sister, good morning. I am doing well. Well, all right, so I have, let's see, I'm going to share it onto Girlfriends' God page. I'll let you know when I've done so. And then you can share it to any of your pages you'd like to do that. That'd be great. All right. Hey, Yanira, good morning. Welcome on to Girlfriends' Guide to Homeschooling. Good to see you on here this morning.
Peace, Janita.
All right. Give me just 1 second. I'll let you know really quick. Hi, good morning, John. Welcome to have you on here.
Yeah.
We got some guy friends that join us too from time to time. Let's see. Okay.
Awesome. All right, sis. Peace. Good. Safe travels, Janita. We need to connect sometime this year.
All right. Sharing. There we go. We're all set. It's shared. So whenever you're ready, let me know and we will get started.
Okay. And I'm ready because I'll do that sharing stuff later. I want to be really present and not try to deal with the tech right now.
Sounds good. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Girlfriends' Guide to Homeschooling. I am turned up for today's interview. Yes, listen. We have an amazing guest today. I'm so excited, thrilled to have her on here to share some perspectives in which she is very vocal on and passionate about and have a heart for, not only just homeschooling, but unschooling and how to do that in regards to our melanated children. I'm excited. So let me just let you know who we are as we're popping up in your news feed. I'm Angela Jordan Perry. I'm the host of Girlfriends' Guide to Homeschooling. This is a platform which gives voice to the African homeschooling diaspora, okay? And also the marginalized homeschooling. So this is where they share their journeys, their successes, their triumphs, their nuggets of wisdom, their insights, struggles, all of that to encourage this village that we're building, this community of melanated homeschoolers. And so this is great. So let me tell you about myself. I am also a homeschooling mom of 8 children, 18 years of homeschooling, 3 children we've already graduated and moved on out of homeschool, and 5 more to go. We are self-sustaining farmers out of the northwest part of South Carolina where we make a home. I am married to my husband of 26 years this year. It'll be my first and only sweetheart. And so that's just a little bit about me. So without further ado, I'm going to tell you about our guest, Akilah. So Akilah, are you ready to make it happen?
I am. And it's good that you're bringing the high energy because I'm in a very chill space and hopefully that'll make it nice and harmonious for everybody.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, let me tell you, girlfriends, about our guest today. Akilah S. Richards is an unschooling podcaster, writer, author of 8 books, unless she's increased since her last bio, and founding board member of the Alliance for Self-Directed Education. Her work both challenges and encourages social justice-minded people to explore privilege explore privilege and power and their relationship with children. In our own family, Akilah says her partner and their two daughters use unschooling as a tool for decolonizing education and liberating themselves from oppressive, exclusive systems. You can find our conversations and commentary at Fair of the Free Child podcast, which is an amazing podcast. I think you post each week, you do a different interview. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you all get connected to that. This is where Akilah supports, connects, and highlights people of color designing their own liberation through self-directed education and love-centered community building. So again, connect with Akilah at www.akilahrichards.com, and then her other resources as well. But all of that is in the show notes. So without further ado, Akilah, I have just told the girlfriends a little bit about you. Please feel free to share anything else just on your heart too, but then also let us know how you got started in your homeschooling journey.
Sure. I'm just always happy to be in spaces like this because when we first started, it just felt like it was hard to find people who, first just Black folks, and then just more generally people who culturally we felt some sort of connectivity to. So I'm so happy, Angela, that you made and held and hold this type of space for us because it's so necessary. For us, we're unschoolers in particular. So it is sort of like homeschooling in that it is not traditional or conventional schooling, but it's different than homeschooling in that we use no curricula at all until or unless our daughters ask for it, and they can weave in and out of curricula or school if and when they want. It's really just about them and their learning journey. And we started because both of our daughters were in a public school system. And after a very short time, less than 2 years, Chris, my husband, and I realized that the focus was more on academics and accomplishment to the detriment of the whole child. So there were a lot of things that were being undone and potentially damaged at the expense of mere academics, which was not really that big of a deal in the full spectrum of things. And so we started out as homeschoolers and did that for a very, very short time before we really just transitioned into natural lifelong learning. And it's been about 8 years since we've been doing that.
Wow. Okay, so for all of our girlfriends who this terminology of unschooling and lifelong learning and all of that type of stuff, who are just unfamiliar with that terminology, break that down just a little bit of what that looks like now. I mean, you've been doing that for 8 years. What does your day look like? Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll give you more of the terminology because the day will just really vary. So in terms of definitions, I'll give you more of that. So unschooling is essentially learning as if school was one resource and not the primary place where learning happens, essentially, right? So it's very much personal. Learning is a very personal thing. So it gives each individual child and adult, because everybody in the house is unschooling, an opportunity to explore their interests, to express those interests, and to get support in those interests from other adults or other young people. And so lifelong learning is just another term. It's a synonym for it because it basically tries to center the learner, the person, as opposed to most other approaches to learning that really focus on the material, like what to cover. And so the day will vary. We also happen to be a location independent family, which just means that we don't live in there's no one particular city that we call home. This came as a result of our unschooling journey. And so we use a lot of home share options like Airbnb, or, staying with family members. And we do a lot of like, where's the cheapest place to fly, that sort of thing. And in all of those spaces, learning is happening. It's not something that we have to sit and simulate or test, because we also don't test as unschoolers, because proof, if you will, of learning happens just from being around. It's living together. And so the proof is in dialogue. And then you stop looking for proof as well. So our days will just vary depending on where we are. Our daughters are 14, Marley is 14, and Sage is 12. And so, their day right now, they're at an Agile Learning Center, which is a self-directed education school in a sense. And right now, while we're in Atlanta, that's where they are. And so their days are going to kind of go with that Agile Learning Center model, which has a lot of free play, but also some community-centered, intentional aspects of it. So that's what their days look like right now.
Gotcha. So you are, you have this strong voice, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, on, well, I should say your platform, Fair of the Free Child. Tell us where that was birthed out of, and why you feel that it's essential that we have this platform of unschooling for our melanated children.
Yeah, I think that, and unschooling is one form of self-directed education. It's the one that I do. So in the broader term, self-directed education, I believe is so important for us in particular. And so my podcast, which I started in the summer of 2016, came as a result of getting the messages from folks, getting the emails, getting all the things in Facebook, and even asking myself the question after Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were murdered back to back, asking that question and being asked the question of how can we as people of color, is it safe for us to take our children out of the public school system where they're tucked into respectability and, as if schools are safe, but it feels safer than any crazy white people idea that our children can just roam free and do whatever they want, right? That was the true concern. That was a real concern and is a real concern for a lot of us. Can our children be free? Can we do these options? And so out of anger, Angela, and frustration, I started this podcast because I wanted to talk to us about the reality that it is because of these fears and because of this pattern and history of injustice that we cannot afford to trust our children, our future, to the very same system that consistently attempts to dehumanize us, and disappear us, as I say. And so that's where it started for us. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. And so true. I'm on the same platform. This was built out of frustration and just a desire to change. And as we're having these conversations along the same thing you're saying, what about us? We homeschool too. Again, to give us a voice and give us the opportunity to dialogue where we can understand, this plight and what we're saying and what we're seeing, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing, very much so.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, and it's so important because, so much of what we do as people of color and so much of how we develop the tools to go beyond survival and to actually thrive and, center our needs, so much of that is understandably, but also unfortunately, focused on the white gaze, like how white people and essentially white supremacy will view us, like how valid will we be with this education, or if we dress this way, or if we stop looking as African, or if or if we sound more whatever. All of these things that we do are, so much of what we do is focused on that I think that homeschooling and self-directed education are ways that we can start to back out of that and say, look, what if this was not about what white people thought? What if it was about what we need? Which is why this is so important, because then we do need to have these spaces where we're not trying to communicate with white people about why whatever is wrong is wrong. Instead, that energy is going towards building what we need, what's sustainable for us, so that whatever white people are doing, we're okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Simple. That's very good. Very good. Well, let's transition just a little bit. Akilah, take us back to your first day of homeschooling years ago, 8 years ago, when you first got started. Um, what was that like? What was it like when you first got started?
Battle. It was a battle, like epic battle. Because our oldest Marley is a very vocal, strong-willed person, and that was from the very beginning. So even back then, and she was very much the catalyst for our exit, our breakout from prison of schooling. And and so one of the first things that we did, we said we were going to spend 6 weeks in Jamaica, where my husband and I are from. And so we went and we were staying with family, all of us catching in one room at a family member's house who was so nice to take us in. And we were going to the beach very often, as one does, living on an island for a bit. And so we enrolled the girls in a virtual academy as responsible parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the books shipped to Jamaica. My mom shipped the books. And our daughters, especially Marley, was like, I will not take my book to the beach. And then we said, well, you are taking your book to the beach. And then she brought it. We said, okay, you're going to do math for this amount of time. And then you can go play it. We try to integrate it, which probably for a lot of people is like, what's wrong with that? That's perfect. But they were so resistant to that. And so Chris and I, after like day after day of just being like, okay, we want it to not be a struggle. We want them to enjoy learning. What can we do about this? So we said, okay, I was frustrated and said, let's just leave it. Let's leave it alone. Fine. Don't learn nothing. Leave it alone. And then after, after a few weeks or so, and I've had some sun and we'll revisit this thing and we'll come up with an integrative curriculum that allows for the things that they need plus the things that they want. And Angela, that never happened, because for our girls, we realized that they didn't need that we didn't need to set up boxes and mile markers. We just needed to understand how learning happened, and that we needed to be able and willing to put them in environments where their interests can be explored, or they could be challenged, or, in strewing, there's this thing in unschooling we call strewing, where you just introduce a lot of different things. And also just a lot of observation to realize how much they are learning and how little Chris and I really understood about, cognition and growth and development.
Yeah. I mean, and that's good. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been homeschooling for 18 years, and although I had that time behind my belt, I'm still learning. I'm still learning and how to release the reins to let them be and discover themselves. My red personality says it has to be this. And my kids are so compliant. I mean, they're not obstinate. They're like, okay, mom, whatever you say. But so I'm still learning exactly what you said. And it sounds so beautiful, right, girlfriends? It sounds so beautiful. This dream, like, yes.
It's
I mean,
amazing. It really is. It is, Angela, because I was like you, where, how you explain yourself to be like, this is how it needs to be. I was like a stellar student in terms of academics. I have a very clear idea on what means smart and how one shows up as smart and intelligent and all the checklist things. And my daughters came to just wreck all of that in a way that I am both incredibly frustrated by and deeply grateful for at the same damn time. Because because I've learned that so much of that idea of compliance and validation are not beneficial to my adult self. They made sense for the performance of childhood, but I actually needed to unlearn those things in order to fully own myself. And so a big part of why unschooling is liberation work is that it says, since I have that knowledge, I call that an old knowing, since I have that old knowing now, what can I do to not pass that on, to not imprint that onto my daughters? How can I not get in the way of confident autonomy, of what it means to own themselves? And this is how Chris and I do that, by making those things our problem and not their, not making our concerns about control the thing that we do to them to make them make us feel better.
Girl, okay, that's it. That's it. What can I
Not
say?
easy.
Like,
Listen.
okay, yeah, she's talking about me. So
No, I'm talking about me.
listen, these 8 books you have written, have you gone into detail around this subject of unschooling and confident autonomy? I love this terminology, all of this, unschooling and liberation work. Just mind. Have you, what
Yeah, I
books?
have. I have. My first maybe 6 books. The very first book that I wrote it was called the Execu-Mama Pocket Guide, and it was after having Marley, and at the time I was a paralegal and I was working at a law firm and getting ready to go to law school and very focused. And after having her, I realized for the first time that like other things mattered to me besides becoming an attorney and dominating contract law. Like something else mattered to me, and my path, my future now looked different and uncertain. And, it just kind of led me down this path of, so can I be really driven and really ambitious, but also be a committed mother? And so I wrote a book because that's what I know how to do, just like write out my feelings and my research. And in that book, I interviewed a bunch of women who felt that they did have a harmony between what they did professionally and how they showed up in mothering. And also some of the challenges in that space. So that was really like my first foray into really writing out the things that I was experiencing. And all my other books have been that too, just things that I am understanding and deeply interested in. So to answer your question in a very roundabout way, they're all about unschooling, but only the last 2 have, some idea of unschooling or self-directed education in the terminology.
Okay.
Because unschooling is all of that. It's unlearning. It's recognizing how much we parent from a space of anxiety, or how much we might be mimicking unconsciously how we were parented, even if we didn't find it effective or even if it wouldn't work for our children. It's just teasing that out, and being with it and saying, you know what, I have options. Let me just start to look at what language and patterns would look like if I was coming from a respect and trust-based place as a parent, and not a fear and anxiety and performance-based place.
That's good, girlfriend. Woo! Let me tell you, this is Akilah Richards here on Girlfriend's Guide to Homeschooling. Dropping some nuggets. You all just hit the replay button, because you're gonna want to hear this again and just chew on the meat. Just chew on it, because setting us free in some ways and liberating our thought processes too. So thank you, Akilah. This is good. So listen. My mantra of life is no one gets a ticket to perfect. No one. I don't care who you are and what you do, how much money you have for donor, etc. No one gets a ticket to perfect. So with that in mind, take us to your worst day of homeschooling, Akilah. I mean, it was so bad you thought, what in the hell am I doing? I'm going to send these kids back somewhere. But you didn't quit. You almost quit, but you didn't quit. And this is why you're this amazing homeschooling mom that you are today. Tell us about that day.
So because what we do is about living, all of my stories have to do with parenting. So I think that anybody can relate, because we live as though school doesn't exist. So even the term, as you're saying it, I'm like, I can give you an example of just like being with my daughters and realizing that as a person, dealing with another person, I'm so frustrated because our personalities are so different or so similar. So one example is, and I actually did I showed a video about this recently, where Marley, my oldest, she recently asked me to start knocking, on her room door, knock before I come in. And I was like, excuse me? Okay. I was like, Even though I'd been thinking about it, like, but how I grew up, that was never, ever, ever the case. You know, you have a Jamaican mother, even think about closing the doors, like, what? You know, my mother literally, and I'm bigger than my mother literally took my door off the hinges because I think I might have like slammed it sometime at one point or something like that. But anyway, it's not that I have any sort of fundamental issue or concern with her. It just felt weird. So I said, okay. And then I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, why? You know, why? Why do you need to close the door? As if there's any like good reason. And she said, well, I just don't like the idea of not knowing when someone's gonna be in my room. And I feel like it's, something like I feel like it's legitimate, it's okay. And and I ended up being fine with it. But why I cite it as one of the experiences is because I had to do so much work around my default thing to be like, why? Why would you need to close the door, and or to view it as an issue that she was making space for herself? And so it just kind of took me back to that whole idea of all the different ways that I need things to be a certain way and why, you know. Yeah, so that's just like a minor example of just kind of reframing my thought process to say, why is this a problem? Why would it be a problem if she won't close our door?
I follow you. I follow you. So, contrastly to your worst day or that worst moment that you felt challenged you as a parent, tell us your most memorable moment where, I mean, maybe even brings you to tears just thinking about this is why, this right here is why I homeschool. This is it. Take us to that moment.
Yeah. There's so many of those. I think one of the best ones for me is always an impromptu anything session. Like, for example, when we ended up watching, as a time when I was trying to learn French, and Sage is really into languages, and she said, I was telling her that I'm using, the app that she recommended and all of that. And she said, well, let's do something different. And we got on Netflix and we were watching all these different shows. At first, we were just going to watch a segment of one show. And I think she had it in French with the English subs. And we started watching one thing, and then we ended up spending like the whole evening, like maybe 6 or so hours, just watching things on Netflix and practicing our French. And we just had such a good time. And I learned so much about her in that short time, and the new things she was into, because their interests, especially when there are no boxes around it, can vary, and they go down all kind of interesting rabbit holes. So that was a great experience because we just spent the evening together snacking and practicing language and Netflixing, with she was maybe 11 at the time, my 11-year-old.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Very memorable. That's beautiful. Yes. Those moments like that, yeah, that they are big. They're huge, and just warm your heart. This is why we do it, for if nothing else, for something like that. That's beautiful. So Akilah, this next part of our show, these are questions to pick your brain, where you can give us quick answers. But before we do, girlfriends, go ahead and hit the share button so you can get other girlfriends on here to hear Akilah share her nuggets of wisdom more on these short answer questions. So Akilah, so what is your favorite quote or mantra that helps you stay sane or keep you going forward on this homeschooling journey?
This is one from my very first book, that about balance. People talk a lot about work-life balance or finding the balance, and I say balance is for yogis and flamingos. Like, that keeps me really sane. I prefer harmony. That term, it matters to me because, being in harmony means that I do get to dive all the way into one place and have a beautiful imbalance that it can be staccato and all of those things I know how to flow through, or to be with, as opposed to, 2.5 hours here, da 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 da. So I tap into that a lot.
Yes, that's good. I say things like that, and I just think people think I'm crazy. there's really no such thing as balance, because if you're doing something here, something over here is not getting your attention. And for us as
Yeah,
women, and especially me as a red personality, you hear me talk about red personality all the time. That can drive you crazy because you want to keep things just, it doesn't happen. You're going to give all your,
exactly.
these other things are going to go, and you got to embrace that. And then this is going to go, you're going to give your attention to something else. So that's beautiful.
Yep.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah, that's super helpful for me. Absolutely. And you got to know yourself
yes.
because maybe there are folks for whom that puts them back to center. But I think for so many of us, that's just the default idea, but not the reality.
That is it. Very
Yeah.
good, good, good. Do you plan to homeschool your girls all the way to the end through, through high school and graduate?
We definitely plan to live and learn together for the rest of, our lives, whatever that looks like. So we don't focus on graduation is not even a terminology that we use.
That's different. Unpack that. Tell me, what does that mean?
Um, so we don't, since education is not something that we do to or for our girls, there's no end. We don't think of our girls as school age. We think of them as Marley and Sage. So we don't know. We don't know what they're going to end up doing. It depends on what they want to do. Right now, both of them are interested in college because one wants to go to art school in particular, and another one is interested in something else that calls for schooling. So we are putting together portfolios, and depending on where we are, they might do a little bit of schooling. But yeah, we're living and learning, and that's pretty consistent.
Girl,
So we don't grade or anything like that. Yeah.
gotcha. You just keep blowing our minds, okay? I just like mind blown. Like, what in the world? Okay. Woo, that's good. That's good. All right, we're learning. This is what it's all about, gleaning and growing. So we're just pulling all from you. So, all right, Akilah, tell us, is there a favorite curriculum or book that you can recommend that you feel like every melanated family must have in their library? That's something that you have right now in yours. You feel like this is a resource everyone should have and know about.
Mm, um, you know what? I think I'm going to give a weird recommendation, a journal. Because so much of the work is not necessarily, in my opinion, about the right book or the right information, because that's going to depend on what you need and where you are in your journey. The right book for me now might have been the right book for you 10 years ago. But it's to tap into yourself. Like start doing something, whether it's using voice memos or a journal, or start a sister circle where you're talking to the same group of women consistently over an extended time, um, or something movement related. Yoga is helpful for a lot of people, but something where you can tap into your patterns. That is, I think that's recommended for everybody, because when you do this work, whether you do it as a homeschooler or move into self-directed education, you're going to find that a lot of this work with your child is going to cause you to face yourself.
Mm.
You're going to need to shift how you've learned to deal with things, how you've communicated, how you need to be communicated to, your boundaries. All of those things are going to come up. And so the more you understand yourself, I love that you say red personality. Sounds like you do a lot of self inquiry and an understanding of what you need and how you show up. That is going to be more important than anybody's anything.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. What is the best piece of advice you've received, Akilah, that you can share with us on this journey?
You can't keep using tools of oppression and expect to raise free people. I think that came to me from somebody somewhere, an ancestor, I guess. And that's the best advice because it's a disruptor for me. When that phrase comes up, and my niece Amaya says it at the beginning or end of every podcast episode, and I hear it now in Amaya's voice, and it challenges me in a moment when I'm doing or saying something related to my daughters, to be like, whoa, what's the root of what I'm doing? And do I need to back up a little bit to be with this thing before I hurl it at my kid?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and because that control thing is a tool of oppression, it's the easiest thing to go to because I'm in the position of power. But if I'm raising someone with confident autonomy, then they can't become acclimated to, you know, responding to somebody in a position of power using that power over them.
We could end the show right here. Akilah, oh my goodness. Okay, all right, listen. Here's the last question, the $1 million question. Are you ready, Akilah?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you had to start all over again, back to day one, you have your current wisdom, knowledge, insights, conviction, skill. What would be the first thing you change or something you'd be sure to implement this journey this time around, Akilah?
I have thought about that so much, Angela. And I would have to say that it's reading. Like my approach to reading, teaching Marley and Sage how to read was a very forceful one, especially for Sage, who is very much this introverted, flow, not force type of person. But I took very much the traditional approach. And I would change that because it was harmful, especially for Sage. And that's something that if I could, I would go back and take the unschooling minded approach of letting them be in their environment and having the need for written and, you know, reading and writing communication to emerge consistently, you know, and then develop practice around that. I would definitely do that differently.
I'm going to tell you what, Akilah. So this interview of I think we're at 70 or 69, you might be, but of all the interviews I've had so far, this one has challenged me on so many levels. But the biggest level it has challenged me, and girlfriend, you tell me if this is true of you. You can just put, yes, this challenged me. Yes, you just blew your mind. But the thing of power. And when you surmise all of what you said to me, for me personally, this unschooling, freedom of learning, confident autonomy, unschooling and liberation, all that terminology means that for me, I have to release power. And a red personality likes to be in control. We like to have everything in order because we think it out, we plan it, this is how it's going to look, in that type of thing. And so you are challenging me greatly in my power, authority that I love, you know? And especially as a mom of 8 children, you know, I've run this home and a farmer, you know, all that kind of stuff. You are challenging me. Now I got to go and get a glass of wine or something and just sit back and sit on my balcony, the mountain, and just drink and just like, what in the world? What do you do? You just messing me all up.
I love it. I love it. And I appreciate that you're receiving it very well because I know I'm a disruptor and I'm not always met with a beautiful smile and the appreciation. So it's nice, Angela, I gotta say.
Disruptor is a great word. I mean, I'm smiling, but I'm inside going like, what in the world? All right, Akilah, thank you. Oh my goodness, this was great. I'm so grateful and pleased to have had this time with you. Will you please share any last words of advice you want to give to our girlfriends? Let them know how they can get in contact with you if they would like to continue this discussion. Just go ahead and let it rip, girl.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having me, and thank y'all for being here. I'm not looking at the comments because, again, with the tech, I'm just looking at Angela's face. So I'll look at all of this after. But I will put on this video my direct website, which is akilahrichards.com. It has a little voice memo button, and I love getting voice memos. So any questions that come up, the link to the podcast is there. I also have courses and communities around everything from spirituality to the liberation work of unschooling, because all of those things are connected. I write a lot. That's how most people come across my work. So on Medium, my name is there. It's Radical Selfie because I started with radical self-expression work. But I'll put those links there. But I invite you to read and listen to the podcast and become a part of the community of people who are saying, we have options and we cannot afford to raise oppressed people. We can't be complicit in oppression. So what can we start doing differently? That's what I am an activist for, trusting our young people and supporting them. And in that process, learning how to trust and support ourselves.
Beautiful. Man, you just ended everything you say is just like, dang, good. What in the world? Okay, listen. Girlfriends, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with, and you have been hanging with Akilah Richards for this last hour. Woo! If she didn't make a positive impact on your life, I don't even know. You got to be dead or something. I don't know, girlfriends. Come on, let's get it together. But listen, continue to connect with other positive people who's going to bring a positive impact into your life. And then you be that positive resource that others can draw from. I like what Akilah said. Yes. She said, connect and start a sister circle. That's huge. It's huge. So be someone that someone want to be with you in a sister circle. That's huge too, right? So
definitely
keep up the momentum, you girlfriend. You can do it. I'm sure all of what Akilah has said has been encouraging, enlightening. Yes, hit the replay button, share this with other girlfriends who either considering homeschooling or are homeschooling, and also need to get this insight, this encouragement, these nuggets of truth that Akilah Richards has shared with us today. So you all listen, remember that to teach a child is to touch a life. And as we homeschool, we not only touch a life, but we shape the future through our efforts of homeschooling. And Akilah just crushed us like, am I doing
I'm disrupting some things. Y'all head over to selfdirected.org. Get some more disruption.
Disrupting my morning. But it's all good because I love the challenge. I love it. And girlfriends, hopefully this has been the same for you. You love it. You want change. You want growth. And this is what this is all about, how to become better and connect with our village here, saying, hey, there's some better ways to do it. Look at this. Consider this. Consider that. So, just keep that positive, keep making a positive impact day after day in your homeschooling, year after year. Become your better selves and stay connected to Girlfriends' Guide to Homeschooling. We have just extended our village to Akilah Richards and wherever she may be in the world in her travel. So Akilah, Girlfriends' Guide to Homeschooling is grateful to you and appreciates you for giving of your time, your nuggets, your resources, your wisdom, and impacting thousands of homeschoolers worldwide. So thank you so much, Akilah. It's been my pleasure to spend this time with you. Thank you, girl.
You are very welcome. Peace. Thank you for having me. Thank y'all for watching. Share.
Yes. Share. All right, girlfriends. All right, take it and run with it. You all have a great week until our next interview 3 times a week. We'll be back on Wednesday with another lovely interviewee sharing some nuggets. And until then, peace and blessings, you all. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, Akilah.